Sup everyone, Wave here. So as a huge MMORPG fan, I need to react to this. KiraTV made a video on why the MMORPG genre is dead to him. I'm gonna pause in between for opinion stuff and let's get started.
Like many of you, I've found myself hopping from game to game trying to find what it was that made me a lifelong MMORPG addict. It's probably not the healthiest mindset, but I'm still chasing that fix. I started playing back in 1997, playing Ultima Online, and I tried pretty much everything from then until now, sometimes even finding a home for thousands of hours, but more likely a fleeting experience. The MMORPG genre has been headed down a dark path now for over a decade, and you know what else is dark?
Yeah, that's true. They always try to recreate that one light we had in the past of our nostalgic MMORPGs, as you can say, like back in the day with World of Warcraft, when Wrath of the Lich King was at its peak. I watched my cousin playing that game all day long, man. That was insane. Good old times.
Today's sponsor, Dark Nemesis Infinite Quest.
I couldn't afford,
do you have what it takes to be a peacekeeper of the multiverse? Find out today with the link in the video description and join the battle against threatening bosses from different worlds.
As a
Take on the hordes of enemies as one of 4 classes:
I need to react
warrior,
to this.
assassin, mage, or gunslinger, each with unique skills and aesthetics.
Amazing.
If you're out on the move and need a game to jump into within minutes, no problem. You can play this from anywhere, like here, or even outside your house. I of course can't get footage of me doing that because I'm not allowed to leave. I have to stay here and make YouTube content, and my yard time is limited to a few minutes each day.
Yeah,
you can do it on your commute, at work, on your boss's time, when your waifu drags you to the pillow store, literally anywhere. There is exciting PvP, including a battle royale mode, as well as 5v5
Looks like casual fun, to be honest,
your speed, and of course a ton.
But I'm not a big fan of mobile games at all.
So join the battle for free using the link in the video description. Use the gift code to get some goodies in game, and check out their event where you can win prizes for making your own video. Do all that, and maybe I'll be allowed outside today.
Damn, the HP bars are like in Lost Ark.
Video and back to the content.
Could be interesting.
I played a recently released MMO that really hooked me for a couple of weeks. Lost Ark. Sadly, that same MMO made me realize that what I'm looking for.
Stop before he goes on with Lost Ark stuff. I must say personally that Lost Ark is not really an MMORPG for me, even though it has so many MMORPG elements, and it is basically an MMORPG, but the top-down perspective, it just gives me a different vibe. It feels like Diablo 3, but better and with more online functions. And don't flame me, I played a lot of Diablo 3. I was into like every season back in the day, and damn, that's just shitty grind right now. Diablo 3, I can't recommend it right now. It's bad. And I played it for years, so
for in this genre is gone. It's dead and it's buried, replaced with something almost unrecognizable. This experience sent me on a real deep introspection regarding the genre's current state, and more importantly, my place within it. I had some long conversations with my friends and my brother, who are also long-term MMO fans. They've been there with me for a lot of these years, and most of what was said was agreed upon wholeheartedly by each one of us. The genre just isn't for us anymore, and it's unlikely to ever be again. Now,
I think it is still a genre for you. The thing is that MMORPGs are not progressing. They are not trying to do something new. They try to recreate the same World of Warcraft formula over and over again, and they fail over and over again. It's not that easy. You need to really think outside the box. I'm not saying it's easy to create an MMORPG. What I'm saying is that it's pretty hard. Because
I just want to outline that this is not me
succeed at so many aspects.
Giving up on the genre. I'm not the most jaded human being in the world, I don't think, or that I'm saying you're wrong if you like current MMOs or a current MMO, or if you find fun in the genre, because I'm glad that you do. I wish I did as well. The genre is inarguably more popular than it's ever been, and it has more popular games across the board than it did when I would have considered it the genre.
Like many people think that New World is dead. It still has a solid player base, but
for me,
it's not that
big.
big.
Means more people having fun,
but
and clearly that's why we are where we are today, and that's where we should be, because that's what games are for people to enjoy them and to have fun. I do, however, think that the original spirit, the original vision of what the MMO acronym used to mean is just not the same. The way I would describe it is that there's some great games in the MMORPG genre. They're just not great MMORPGs. And part of that might come from me. Part of it might come from my nostalgia, my change of lifestyle, my change of perspective over the years. But I do think there are examples you can give that do hold water when discussing how the games are just designed differently and thus fundamentally going to change the experience you have and how they feel to play. Now, as for why Lost Ark sent me on this quest, I was truly enjoying the game. I was playing 8 to 12 hours a day, and it's sincerely been a while since I've had that in an MMO. But I was even neglecting work to play. However, each day, I just found something else that bothered me about the experience. Each day, something I was doing was grating at me and wearing me down until I just stopped logging on. It wasn't like there was a specific moment where I was like, yeah, this sucks, I don't want to play anymore. I didn't make a conscious decision to stop. It was just a progressive distaste for how the game made me feel. The way I would probably describe that is the slow decline of the willpower I had to try and ignore the issues that I was noticing just so I could enjoy the few things that were hooking me into the game. And
that's sadly true. I can improve, man.
I can't say it better. The veil of what was hooking me, that was it.
Inside my mind.
Stop noticing it anymore. Talking specifics for Lost Ark, the game has a lot of good points. In fact, I'd go as far to say as it's one of the most feature-complete MMOs we've seen released in recent years. And in terms of how much content there is,
if you compare it to New World, it's a pretty big.
It's pretty unparalleled in the market. I can definitely see why this game has appealed to such a wide audience of people, including myself, because there's just so much stuff to do. Specifically as well, the horizontal content, the combat's really fun, and of course the game's flashy. It just feels good in that brainless kind of way that ARPGs make you feel, as well as there being content that makes you think as well, so you can really step into the lane of what you want to do as you want to do it. However, some of the core systems just remind me of how much more fun I used to have when the treadmill wasn't so blatant. For example, Lost Ark's core gearing system is one of the most unfun systems I've ever interacted with, and it makes me positive of progression-based tiers that are prevalent throughout the game's lifespan just feel worse than they really should. And now, what do I mean by progression-based tiers? It's basically when a player must go through tier 1 to get to tier 2, and then through tier 2 to get to tier 3, and so on. Basically, this stops them cannibalizing their own content. For an example of cannibalizing content, I would give you skip mechanics like in Retail World of Warcraft, where essentially they release a new patch and it invalidates what was in the previous patches because it allows you to catch up without doing that content. It essentially gives you less of a game to play, and they just want everyone on the same footing. Now, using that same comparison but of older WoW, and why Lost Ark feels worse in the way that it does this, despite it being kind of similar with you going through the tiers instead of skipping them. In old WoW, you'd work for something for quite a while, and then when you got it, when you achieved it, it would feel valuable and you would feel fulfilled. And then moving to the next tier didn't instantly devalue all the things you'd done previously, because you still had that stuff and it was still useful for quite a while until you got new stuff. Essentially, it was a much more long form of progression where you were getting things slowly, so when you did get something, it really felt meaningful. In Lost Ark, however, everything's 0 to 100. You go from no gear when you hit level 50 to being in the first tier of gear.
Yeah, you always get this entire new set, completely new, and everyone has like the same set. And when you are on the same tier, you obviously have the same style, except if you have a skin on, but that's kind of sad. I liked it in World of Warcraft when you had that one legendary gear pickup, that one insane upgrade for your gear, that one thing, and you slowly grade your character up till it reached that one gear score. Here it's more like you get this new entire legendary armor set. I didn't get it. And after that, if you're done with tier 1, you get this entire blue armor set for tier 2, and okay. It didn't feel like progressing. Kind of felt weird, to be honest, yeah.
And upgrading all your stuff really quickly, and then that gear is easily enhanced, and then it gets harder and harder while also getting better quality, and you're trying to get the right stats for your class until you hit an artificial barrier of RNG, which you can then surpass with grinding for more hours daily on alts or spending real life money until you overcome said barrier.
Yeah, I'm currently at tier 2, and I already saw the tier 3 content. Yeah, 2% chance to do anything.
Now, this obviously isn't bad for everybody. Some people like incremental progression, but for me, it felt more frustrating than rewarding, and I actually think it felt more like a compulsion rather than an achievement. I wasn't doing it because I was enjoying it. I was doing it because I just wanted to get the next level. Now, of course, once you overcome that barrier, once you hit the next tier, you literally throw that gear away. Gear that you grinded for each day for dozens of hours, likely even getting the right stats for your class.
It felt bad from tier 1 to tier 2.
Instantly received higher eye level pieces, and then you restart the cycle all over again. And by the time you get to the end and get the stats that you wanted, You then, you know, throw that gear away and move into the next tier. On top of this, because you know the source for the gear and what the gear looks like and what the gear is, and it's so easy to come by, you're just chasing rarity and then RNG differences in stats and quality. It just didn't ever feel like a fulfilling experience to receive gear, especially knowing that as soon as I moved to the next tier, I'd just be replacing it with a higher eye level anyways, so it was kind of pointless. Of course, this changes once you hit tier 3 because that's the max right now, but you've already at that point spent hundreds of hours in the game. So to bring it back to the overall MMO discussion, you know, back in my day, back in the early days of the genre with games like EverQuest and World of Warcraft, when you received gear upgrades, they were so few and far between that they just felt meaningful. You could notice immediate upgrades to your gameplay, and not just through damage, but also from cosmetics. You looked different, which made it feel like this was substantial. Those two aspects were huge for
and I think it's kind of sad that you need to buy all that shit to just look better, man.
For me, because it was the identity of your character that you were playing and you'd poured hundreds or thousands of hours into, as well as there was, of course, a social aspect around it. And because I play this genre partly for that meaningful progression and the feeling of achieving something and then feeling the fulfillment and the pride over what I'd achieved, when you remove all of that and replace it with a dice roll, that doesn't feel good. So the idea of long-form, meaningful progression feels like a mechanic that has been steamrolled and streamlined for modern MMOs for the most part. If I was to compare getting a really good item in Burning Crusade on my Elemental Shaman to the retail WoW experience, those two feelings are completely different. They're night and day. What makes it even worse is then if you compare the experience of hitting a pen in Black Desert Online or hitting, you know, a low RNG upgrade in Lost Ark, that feels like opening a loot box in CSGO and getting a rare knife skin.
True, especially in Black Desert 2. Black Desert 2. In Black Desert, it felt so horrible doing the pen upgrades.
Fulfillment isn't an achievement. It's
so
gambling. It's just sitting there rolling a dice repeatedly until you get lucky. The way in which you also gather materials.
I don't understand with CSGO, nice man. I think, why do people value the nice more than the weapon skins? You use the weapon and shit like that. Why are you valuing the fucking knife? We're just running around and you're not normally fighting with it, man. I just don't get it.
To do these things are just checklists.
Like the Star Trek stuff, weapons in CSGO, they look, for example, cool, and they're just, in comparison to knives, they're pretty much worthless.
So you do X and Y each day.
Maybe I got that wrong, but
resources, and then you sit down at the table and you roll your dice. If you're lucky, collect your percentage upgrade, and if you're not lucky, come back next time with a higher chance or swipe your credit card for unlimited chances. When I succeed in upgrade in one of these games with these RNG upgrade systems, I don't feel joy, I feel relief, which is weird.
This is bad. If you feel relief and joy, then that's pretty bad in my opinion.
Because what is relief is an emotion. You guys can let me know in the comments, do you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, it's more like, I'm finally done with that quest. That's relieving. But not like, finally, I did it, I got this, I wanted this so bad, finally. You also get that happy feeling. Yeah, okay, it's hard to describe, but that relief thing is more hoping that it's finally done, or that's more like it. I don't know how to explain it,
am I just going crazy?
I hope you know what he means and what I mean.
Do you get that same feeling when you progress in games like this with these RNG upgrades? Because relief for me is a feeling I associate almost entirely with anxiety and things that I'm worried about or not enjoying. I want it to be over, and when I hit that upgrade, that's
you want
exactly
it to be over.
Feel. And I only just noticed this. I only connected 2 and 2 together very recently with Lost Ark. Whereas when I compare it to older games where I felt joy is a feeling, of course, that it brings happiness. I used to feel joy when I achieved something in the game, when I got something new with my newly found friends, and we felt that together as a group. I even used to feel joy when I saw somebody else in my group get an item, because I knew that would impact me in the game, because we were playing this game together. We existed in this social space together, and working together as a group was a core feeling of the game. And rarely do I ever feel that those things exist anymore. I don't feel that we're working together as a group. I feel like I'm one person in a game that is full of other individuals. At this point, I don't know if it's me that's changed into a selfish human, but I never care when other people get things, because I don't even really see it. They don't get their item drops from the raid. They go away and press their button, and maybe they'll succeed their enhancement chance. And this removes a massive factor of what made MMOs the MMO genre for me. I feel like it's totally counterproductive and negative to feel relief in a video game compared to joy. So as soon as I realized that and associated what I was feeling while playing this game, it was pretty much lights out for my experience with Lost Ark. I realized that I love that long form progression, and the genre now is just turned vapid. It's just designed purely to give you incremental progress that will keep you hooked on a constant drip of dopamine. It seems like the genre has moved from designing a game to be played.
I hope Ashes of Creation and like Blue Protocol, the newer MMORPGs will fix that. I hope they can do it
year round, because that's how they'd make their money from the subscription model, to just giving you constant good boy points for doing literally anything, so that maybe in the short term you'll give them more money so that you can get more good boy points. I also made a video a couple days ago reacting to a Reddit thread about someone's boyfriend being addicted to spending money in Lost Ark and
I watched that one. I also reacted to that
buy
one.
things to try and progress in the game. A lot of people didn't seem to agree with me that rage or anger is an indicator for potential addiction issues.
I think it totally is. Like
specifically when it comes to gambling, but in my experience, anger and in general negative feelings lower your ability to make good decisions. So then it's no surprise to me at all that a lot of games that house predatory microtransactions and RNG based upgrade systems make the process of progression elicit negative emotions that can lead to anger, since then you are much more likely to pay money to try and skip the thing that is making you feel that way. I believe that this is why the systems rely on giving you lots of small, easy, incremental upgrades repeatedly to make you feel how good it is to see that progression constantly, and then they make it consistently harder and harder, so you're much more likely to just say, fuck it, and, you know, just swipe the problem away. It's frustrating, and I feel like this did not used to be the case.
Yeah, this is mental PvP, as I call it. They try to find that sweet spot in your brain, so you are going to swipe. They all are doing like that currently with like every new MMORPG, even though
and while I can enjoy these games briefly, ultimately I'm going to notice where these cogs are turning and what they're trying to do to me, and I have to stop. Now that's probably a long section to talk about something as small as loot and gear progression, but it plays a large factor of why I've enjoyed this genre for over 20 years, and it serves as a small example of how the genre has been designed for the changing times of instant gratification and corporate monetization. To be honest, a lot of people play these games for the power fantasy. They play these games for the escapism, and when the whole escapism and power fantasy is tied to these mechanics that are just designed basically to make you do these things, yeah, it's just not anywhere near as good for me. And it isn't to say that Lost Ark doesn't have difficult, challenging, or fulfilling content either. It really does. Some of the Guardian raids can be challenging the first time you do them. The Abyss dungeons have mechanics that require you to pay attention and learn, or you're going to wipe your group. But the payoff for completing them feels, again, like just much more of the same. Just the incremental march towards the inevitable RNG gate for a couple...
To be honest, Guardian raids, if you finally did them, I felt joy in that one. But Abyssal stuff, it's like, yeah, I need to do my dailies, man. Guardian raids are more exciting. Abyss dungeons are more exciting. But...
% increase in stats.
And
when I realized all of my playtime was working towards these percentage upgrades, that didn't fulfill me at all, and I was pretty down on the experience.
But yeah, that's
now on top of that, social
like...
features in the MMO genre are a sore spot. I feel like dungeon queues and instantly getting into groups with strangers are super convenient, and they have a place in games that are trying to appeal to the most people possible. I mean, that's why they exist. They respect your time as an individual, and they get you into the content as quickly as feasible. However, in almost all modern MMOs, it feels like most of the people you encounter in game could be replaced by NPCs, and you probably wouldn't even know. In fact, you'd probably have a better time. It feels like with older MMOs, they were designed first and foremost as a social experience, and I don't feel like they are anymore. And back in the day, they used to use things like difficulty to accomplish this. Back then, even the leveling experience was difficult, and that was to incentivize you to group. A lot of games back then was designed with grouping in mind. You didn't get a lot of experience for killing single creatures. You'd get a lot for quests, and you could quest faster with more people. Or you'd get more experience for killing harder enemies, so you'd group up and grind areas in things like Lineage and things like EverQuest. This means that you are constantly interacting with people in a social game, in what I perceive as a social genre, as opposed to nowadays where they've removed all difficulty and with it most of that social aspect, and instead they give you a streamlined, almost single player experience as a default, not as an option, and they make it easy enough.
It's not an MMORPG anymore. It's just an RPG with different.
That it feels like you could fall asleep and still achieve victory. This is probably why most people quit during the leveling process in most modern MMOs, because it's just boring. It's the same thing. There are no funny stories or social interactions to keep you going, which is what most of the good things about MMOs have always been. And this is, of course, to allow as many people as possible to actually play the game, and then they just stack the difficult content at endgame. And this is what people will say: to have fun in an MMO, it gets good after you played 100 hours, and that's usually after you've finished a leveling experience, which is weird considering that's actually part of the game, or at least it used to be. They essentially just turn it into a really long, boring tutorial in most circumstances, and there are of course exceptions to this, and Final Fantasy XIV is one such exception, and you'll find that in many of these cases when you're talking about modern MMO design, that Final Fantasy...
I got behind Final Fantasy XIV. I think it's a great game for different people, for many people, but it just didn't hit for me. I don't know. Kind of felt weird to play it
in certain ways. The leveling in Final Fantasy XIV is not a tutorial, it's actually a vehicle to tell you the story, which is the main focus of the game. And I would go back to what I said at the start of the video. I think Final Fantasy XIV encompasses this. It's first and foremost an amazing JRPG with a fantastic story, as that is the focus, and then it just has MMO features added onto it, as opposed to being an MMO first and foremost. I feel like in older MMOs you could play mostly solo as a playstyle choice if you avoided the group content and the harder areas, but you wouldn't experience a lot of the game, and there were still people who did this and loved the game for what it was. I believe they were developed with the understanding that some people would play more and be better, so they would be able to do more stuff and experience more of the game. And new MMOs feel like they've been made so nobody gets left out. Everybody gets the same experience, which means nothing you do really matters.
But they need to do is to maximize profit. It's just
until you get to the end. And even then, they're probably just going to give you weaker difficulties of things to the point where it trivializes content and doesn't make you really work for anything. Now, I'm not going to say this is the worst game design ever in terms of making it accessible to everybody, but I do think there is a solid point to be made about how something being difficult and fulfilling over a longer period of time.
Yeah, I also personally like more hardcore MMOs.
The result much more desirable and just feel better over.
Imagine Dark Souls or Elden Ring, the MMORPG. That would be insane.
I mean, if we weren't looking for long-form progression, we'd probably be playing short-form progression games like ARPGs that have seasons or something like that. But instead, it feels like the MMO genre has transformed itself to try and appeal to that audience and left behind the longer-form progression audience that originally populated these games. As someone who's met a lot of people, some of my best friends through playing MMOs and bonded with people through playing these games, I miss the game design that puts you in situations where helping people, recognizing them, having logical, meaningful reasons to interact with them would result in experiences that elevated the game to something that is unique to you as an individual. All of my best stories from gaming, the most memorable ones, revolve around things that happened with other people first and how that related to the game second. When removing that human element, most of your experiences become carbon copies of everyone else's. You're all on the same treadmill, following the same tight progression path that has been cultivated for you, and as soon as I realize the parameters of that treadmill, I usually lose interest in the game fairly quickly. Now, maybe that is partly because of how people play these games now and how it's different, but again, I've noticed that even playing classic WoW, classic TBC, the game design just makes you interact with more people. It just does. And of course, the feeling of back when you used to be on your own server and you'd see these people day in, day out, and you'd just have a friendly chat with them, and you'd eventually get to know them, and you'd know their guilds and things like that. It just felt much more connected, which is ultimately what MMOs were originally. There were chat rooms with a bunch of people from all over the world, and you then just had a game around it that you were playing as well. Maybe it's a case of they designed like this because it was the new cool thing that you could meet these people and you could be instantaneously in a world with people from all over the place and have this instant communication with hundreds and thousands of people. But I don't truly believe that that needed to go away. I don't believe that you needed to start designing games around mostly being a
but it's more
solo player with just other people around you. And games like Black Desert Online are a perfect example of this, where most people just don't play the game on their own, which is definitely more accessible because you're not waiting for anybody to do anything, but at the same time, it feels much less like an MMO. And again, all these things aren't specifically bad, they're just bad for me. And this, of course, extends into the focus on daily content and the checklists that you have to do if you want to remain sort of caught up to the other people and do the content when it releases. which is definitely not important to everyone, but it is to me. The checklist in these games are getting longer, and the requirements more mundane and tedious in general, and the reasoning seems to be to try and make the option of paying much more appealing. I make good money. I make good money on YouTube, I'm not going to lie about that. And the idea of making alts in Lost Ark and repeating content that I'm not really enjoying, because like I said, it is quite vapid, it just doesn't appeal to me all too much. It's putting a dollar sign on your time, which is never a good feeling to have. Because if I can earn money faster by making YouTube videos than I can by playing the game on my alts and then make progress that way, I'm probably just going to spend the money because, again, time is money, friend. It didn't used to be like this, and of course I don't spend money like this because of how it used to be. I feel that if I'm going to spend money on this, then I am contributing to the continuation of this. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy of you just reinforcing them. You're saying, make the game worse, and I'll give you money just so I can have fun with it, which is the position where a lot of people are that don't understand that this is what's going on. Every time you buy one of these things and think, fuck it, it's just $15, you are contributing.
Yeah, gladly I never had such a moment, and but I knew some people who had those moments, and damn, they got addicted and swiped.
Contributing to them just making the game worse next patch so that they can sell you something else for $15. And the thing is, if you really enjoy the game, you might think that the juice is worth a squeeze, and maybe it is to you. But I really don't understand why people defend this, and I see it all the time on YouTube. I'll see it on this video as well, that Lost Ark's fine, Black Desert's fine, this game's fine, WoW's fine, and they defend it because they enjoy it. But the thing is, I think it's silly to defend this because I think those people would enjoy the games even more
if they weren't designed
right now complete if they respected
garbage.
Your time and didn't try to sell you things.
And I'm saying that as a huge WoW fan. I'm so disappointed in World of Warcraft. What they did to that game, man. Fuck me, man.
Convenience you into spending money, you'd have a better time. And I can't really help that this is how I feel. This is how the genre makes me feel. It could be a doomer take, maybe it's 100% my problem, maybe I'm jaded and the genre's fine. And
I think it's half-half.
That's entirely understandable, but I truly don't think that's the case, at least not completely. Maybe some percentage. I can't rule out that this isn't playing some factor, because I'm not 16 anymore. I'm not raiding Black Temple with the boys that I met on the server and having a real good time. I never will be again. But I have observed and felt how those games used to feel as a now 30-year-old man, and they still feel meaningful. They still feel like they were designed better. They still elicit emotions in me that I thought couldn't be by this genre anymore. I don't think this is entirely rose-tinted glasses or nostalgia. I played Classic TBC when it released, and despite having been there and done that on everything in the game because I loved it so much and I played every waking moment I possibly could, I still found the game to be designed in a way that gave me much more fulfillment and much more of a sense of progression than what these modern games do. And I've had that exact same experience when I went back and played Ultima, when I played EverQuest, when I played any of these older games. They just feel like they respected my time more, they feel like they were designed to be played for longer periods of time, and they didn't feel like they were forcing me to do things I didn't really enjoy just so they could try and make me spend more money. I played those games for so many hours because I was having fun, not because I felt a compulsion to complete dailies. And why I was having fun is because I was playing with other people, whereas a lot of these games now, you're playing by yourself, and I can't help but feel...
Yeah, I remember in World of Warcraft when I also had so many add-ons and shit like that. But it wasn't not that crazy like this one, but still a bit complicated, and damn.
Why would I play an MMORPG that's making me do a checklist of
Maybe
tasks
you can find the game in that screen, man,
when I could just go play a single-player game that doesn't do that and gives me a much better experience. This is why when, again, I will keep saying it, when Classic Burning Crusade came out, I was playing the game for 16 hours a day, and every single minute I was playing with other people in Discord. I was having fun, I was talking to people, I was getting to know people. And that's not to say I couldn't force myself to be social in newer MMOs. It's just that because the game's not designed around doing that, there's less stuff to do, less people doing it, and it just doesn't feel the same. Now, this whole video, again, isn't to say that the new games can't be good. I think that some of them really are. I super enjoy Final Fantasy XIV for totally different reasons. I don't enjoy the game as an MMORPG. I enjoy it as a story game that has some social features tacked onto the side. I enjoy games like Black Desert Online for their ability to turn my brain into a television that's been left on standby mode and just forget about the world while I mindlessly press buttons without a single conscious thought. I enjoy the modern MMO experience for different reasons, but the genre is not what it used to be for me. This is the one genre that requires the most money and the time to create. I don't have a lot of optimism for it ever being like that again. The money follows the casual audience, so they can reach the biggest market possible. Understandably so, with the risks associated with making a game on the scale that these games require. But that means they're going to follow these same design philosophies, and that means pay to win is a given at the expense of the core enjoyment of the game. That means as many systems as possible that are designed to drip feed you incremental progression to keep you interested until they've got their hooks in you, and waste as much of your time as possible until you're playing for the compulsion of it versus the enjoyment of it. Now, I might be totally alone in a lot of what I've said here, but I feel that I truly do think the genre has changed into something I don't really recognize. It isn't the place I envisioned we would be all those years ago, when my guild in whatever game I was playing would talk about how cool it would be in the future, when we had new games released with new technology and new ideas and innovation. Maybe that's a failure on my expectations and not the genre. Maybe I failed to recognize that this was the natural progression and that this is where everyone else wanted to be. I recognize I don't have the answers here, and it's possible that whatever game would be designed ideally for me wouldn't be popular in 2022, but it makes perfect sense to me to look at a game like World of Warcraft and see that over time, as the game lost what made it feel fulfilling and socially enjoyable, it also lost the majority of its player base, trading meaningful progression for good boy point simulator and doing the same content on multiple difficulties, making you have zero identity within the world you're playing due to the cross-realm features and making paying for a boost for content completion a constant in-your-face reminder that nothing you do matters anymore has, in my opinion, made the game...
I don't know, did you have fun grinding dailies and more?
drastically less enjoyable, and the playing numbers accurately reflect that. I use World of Warcraft as an example quite a lot, pretty much all the time actually, because I played and loved that game for over half my life, and it is the perfect example of seeing that shift in game design from what it was then to what it is now. The novelty didn't wear off and make the majority of those people quit the most popular MMO ever made. No, they designed it into being a short-form dose of entertainment, a McDonald's burger of fulfillment in a mall food court surrounded by other fast food that you could easily have instead, giving you almost a one-to-one interchangeable experience.
Yes.
The only reason to hold on is the thought that maybe one day it can return to the state it once was in when most people were playing and the game was good. That's how I feel, and it isn't like all the games are bad, because again, I don't think they are. They're just not good MMORPGs, at least in how it was originally. Maybe they're good MMOs by today's standards of what the word means to people, and maybe I'm just old. There are, of course, glimpses of it here and there, and for people who are new to the genre who didn't experience the things I've touched upon in this video.
Like personally, I played RuneScape back in the day, but to be honest, it's not my type of game, not completely.
It's still great, but for a lot of us, they just remind us of what we consider to have been better. I don't begrudge anybody having an enjoyable experience. That's what gaming's for, and I'm not bitter about it. I can talk about it until I'm blue in the face, and I do still enjoy these games. It's not like I'm quitting MMOs, you know, don't get crazy about it. I'm still going to play all the new ones. I'm still going to go back and play WoW with their new expansion. God damn it, why am I doing that to myself? And I hope everyone truly enjoys the games they play, and if you do, my opinion shouldn't matter.
Yeah, with Microsoft taking over, I hope they can fix WoW. I truly hope.
I just, you know, use it as food for thought, and maybe you'll notice some of these things as well. I hope not, because that might ruin it for you, but there you go. Stay positive. You enjoy what you enjoy, that's what matters. I do look at the genre right now, what we have versus what we started with, and wonder if you couldn't have been having even more fun if we were closer to that in design. Then again, maybe this is exactly what people want nowadays, and that's just a me problem. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe out there. We're out. Peace.
Yeah, that was it. Subscribe to Kira and to me, and I also want to hear your opinion. Would love if you would comment, leave a sub, and shit like that. And yeah, thank you for watching. I see you next time with more reactions, more guides, more stuff to Elden Ring. Lost Ark, I did some Genshin. MMOs in general, like literally anything. I'm like the all-round YouTuber. It's not a strategy, not an effective way to gain more subscribers or views, but I'm just uploading what I want, to be honest. And yeah, just subscribe. I see you next time. Wafer out.